What's up, everybody? I'm Tim from Tim Bridge Gifts, and welcome to this week's edition of Fragrance Oil Friday. So this week we're going to change things up just a little bit. So normally I pick one company, take 10 of their fragrance oils, and give you my impression of what they smell like. Well, for this episode, to finish off Valentine's Day week, I thought we'd have a bit more fun with it. So a few weeks ago I held a contest to see what was the most popular Valentine's Day fragrance, and Love Spell was easily the winner. That got me thinking, every candle supply company carries their own version of Love Spell. Do they all smell the same? Or is one company better than the other? So in this week's edition of Fragrance Oil Friday, we're going to find out who makes the best Love Spell. So here's how it's going to work. I have gotten a 1 ounce sample of Love Spell from 10 different candle supply companies, and we're going to check out all of those and see just how closely they resemble actual Love Spell from Victoria's Secret. And just so we have some sort of answer, we're going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being that's absolutely Love Spell, 1 being I don't even know what that is. Once we're done with that, we're going to take each sample, turn it into an 8 ounce candle, and we're going to check the cold throw on that. We're going to be scoring the strength of the cold throw and whether or not it still smells like Love Spell. And once we're done with that, we're going to burn each of those candles in different places of my house, and we're going to be checking the strength of the hot throw of each candle. Additionally, we're going to be checking to make sure that they still smell like Love Spell. So at the end of the day, each company is going to be scored out of a possible total score of 50. Now at the end of the day, not real sure what that score is actually going to tell us. But if we're going to be comparing things, it just seems a lot easier to give them an actual score that we can look at and put them on a scale against each other. So hopefully by the end of it, we'll be able to determine just who has the best Love Spell. And just to make sure we stay on point throughout all of this, I've actually gotten real samples of Love Spell from Victoria's Secret that we'll be able to compare each one to. So that's how it's going to work. So let's start checking out these samples. So our first sample comes to us from the CANDLEMAKERS store. It's actually really close, so for the number score on this one, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Next, we have a sample from the Flaming Candle. So in my opinion, it kind of smells like Love Spell, but it doesn't smell quite as fruity and playful as the actual Love Spell does. There's kind of almost a staleness to it. You can still tell it's Love Spell, but it doesn't quite deliver. Hopefully that's just the out of the bottle. Hopefully once we get this in some wax, it'll develop a lot more. But just out of the bottle, I'm going to have to give it a 5. Next we have Fragrance Buddy. It's another one that out of the bottle it just doesn't deliver. But to be fair, just out of the bottle is only half the story. But they call it first impression for a reason. It's the first impression we get. For now, it's all we've got to go on. Doesn't quite hit the mark. It too has a certain dullness to it. It's not sharp at the end like you would expect Love Spell to be. So again, I'm going to have to give this one a 5. Alright, next up we have Rustic Escentuals. It smells really good. It doesn't have the full punch that Love Spell does. So I'm probably going to give this one a 7 out of 10. Next we have Love Spell from Lone Star Candle Supply. It's definitely the closest we've had of matching Love Spell note for note so far. So I'm going to give Love Spell from Lone Star Candle Supply a 9 out of 10. Next up is CANDLEScience. Smells really good. It's another one that pretty much matches it note for note. So for CANDLEScience, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 as well. Next we have Keystone Candle Supply. It smells like Love Spell, but it doesn't have that finishing punch. It kind of drops off at the end. So for that, we're going to give it a 7 out of 10. Next we have Love Spell from CANDLEWIC. It smells just like Love Spell, but there's just something about it that doesn't quite carry over. It's almost too strong. There's not enough balance of each individual scent that makes up Love Spell. It's almost like one or two are overpowering the others. Hopefully that'll even out when we get it in wax, but for now we're going to give it a 7 out of 10. Next we have Love Spell from AZTEC Candle Supply. Smells a lot like it. We're going to give this an 8 out of 10. And last but not least, we have Love Spell from Cajun Candle Supply. Smells really close. I think we're going to give this one a 7 out of 10. Alright, so we've got our opening baseline scores. Again, remember the out of the bottle is just the first impression. It's only giving us part of the story. The ones that didn't quite hit it might develop a lot more once we get them in wax. And the ones that smelled spot on might lose a little something once we get them in wax. So now we've got to turn all these into candles to be able to judge their cold throw. So we are ready to turn these into candles. Let's go over our supplies that we're going to use real quick. As you can see, we've got 8-ounce jelly jars for our candle containers. Each jar is marked with the company of the fragrance oil that we're going to be using, just so we don't lose track. Each of those is wicked with an Eco 6 wick. For our wax, we're going to be using 464. I wanted to color these to keep it festive, so since Love Spell is purple, we went with a purple-violet liquid candle dye from Lone Star Candle Supply. And these are 8-ounce candles. We're going to be using the full ounce of fragrance oil, so that's going to give each of these candles a 12% fragrance load. The way it's going to work is I've got my pouring pitchers. We're going to put in 8 ounces from the pot that I have off screen. Then we're going to add our fragrance oil and pour our candle. So that's how all this is going to work. Let's go ahead and turn all these into candles. So we're just going to let these cool, finish turning into candles. We'll be able to come back and check out their cold throw. So these have all completely cooled. We've already got the wicks trimmed. Now we're ready to check out the cold throw. So again, we're going to score these on a score of 1 to 10. We're going to determine the strength of the scent throw, 10 being the strongest, 1 being the weakest. And we're also going to be scoring whether or not it's still a good representation of Love Spell. So let's go ahead and start with the Candlemaker store. So the Love Spell scent is really good. I'd give it about a 7. The strength of the cold throw, probably also give it about a 7. It's not super strong, but you can definitely tell it's there. Next we have the Flaming Candle Company. The scent's developed a little bit more in this. Coming out of the bottle, it wasn't a great representation of Love Spell. It's actually developed a little bit more. So as far as representation of Love Spell, I'd probably give it about a 7. As far as strength of the cold throw, probably about a 7. Next up is Fragrance Buddy. This is another one of those that was flat. Not a whole lot of change. As far as representation, I'd give it about a 6. As far as strength of the cold throw, probably about a 6. Maybe it's one of those that really picks up after the hot throw. We'll have to wait and see. And next we have Rustic Escentuals. It smells really good as far as representation. I give it about a 7. It's not very strong. Hopefully that'll develop in the hot throw as well. But as far as the cold throw, probably about a 6. Next we have Lone Star Candle Supply. It's still really close to spot on as far as representation. I'm going to stick with a 9. As far as strength in the cold throw, it's not super strong, but it's definitely there. I'm going to give it an 8. Next we have CANDLEScience. This one toned down in the wax just a little bit. For representation, I'm going to give it an 8. But it's still pretty strong, so for cold throw, I'm actually going to give it an 8 as well. And next we have Keystone Candle Supply. It's a good representation, not too weak, not too strong, just kind of right in the middle, smells just about right. So for representation and cold throw both, I'm going to give it a 7. And next we have CANDLEWIC. Again, it's another one of those that's just about right, not too heavy, not too weak, not overpowering. Smells just about right. So for both categories, representation and cold throw, it's going to get a 7 for both of those as well. Next we have AZTEC Candle Supply. This was one I wasn't too sure about because fresh out of the bottle the notes kind of clashed a little bit. But now that we've gotten it in wax, it's mellowed out quite a bit. The notes seem right around where they should be. So for representation, I'm going to give it an 8. It's not super strong, so for cold throw, we're going to give it a 7. And last but not least, Cajun Candle Supply. And again, it's another one of those that hits the mark. For representation, it's right about where it should be. Smells pretty much like Love Spell. So for representation, we're going to give it a 7. It's a bit stronger than some of the other ones. For cold throw, we're going to give it an 8. Okay, that was the cold throw representation. We're 2/3 of the way done with our testing. I've got a pretty good idea of which ones are going to be my favorite. but we're never completely finished until we do our test burns. So we're going to let these sit overnight. Tomorrow I'm going to place them throughout the house in equal size rooms. We're going to light them up, let them get to a good melt pool. Then we're going to check the hot throw. So you guys hang tight and we'll be back. So we've got our hot throw testing completely done. Didn't quite turn out the way I expected it to. I did initially have it set up room to room, and I was going to film each candle room to room and do the hot throw reveal in that room where that candle was burning. But between kids running through, the dog and the cat running around, trying to get the lighting and the sound right in each room, just proved to be too much work. So I decided just to power through, get my results, and make do with what I could. So I know it's a bit anticlimactic, but here are the results of my hot throw testing. So for the Candlemaker store, the scent remained pretty consistent. So for love spell representation, we're going to give it an 8. And also the hot throw was pretty strong, so we're going to give that an 8 as well. For the Flaming Candle Company, the scent continued to improve. The initial out of the bottle wasn't that great, but as we got it in wax and experienced the cold throw and the hot throw, the scent continued to improve to be that much more like Love Spell. So for the scent representation, we're going to give it an 8. And for the strength of the hot throw, I'm going to give it a 7. Same thing with Fragrance Buddy. Again, it was one of those that didn't quite hit it out of the bottle, but continued to get better as it was in wax. So for scent representation and strength of hot throw, we're going to give it a 7 in both categories. Next up, Rustic Escentuals continue to remain consistent. For each category, we're going to give it a 7 as well. Lone Star Candle Supply continued to remain very strong. The scent representation continued to be spot on throughout the entire process. So for scent representation, we're going to give it an 8. And for strength of hot throw, we're going to give it an 8 as well. Love Spell from CANDLEScience continued to remain strong throughout the entire process as well. So for scent representation and strength of hot throw, it's going to get an 8 in both of those categories. Keystone Candle Supply actually lost a little bit in the hot throw. It still smelled like Love Spell, but it didn't quite have that finishing punch that you expect from a strong scent like Love Spell. So for scent representation, we gave it a 6. Hot throw was still fairly decent though, so we're going to give it a 7. Next up is AZTEC. Smelled really good out of the bottle, but as we got it in wax and experienced with the different throws, it just seemed to lose a little bit of that Love Spell bite with each step. So for the scent representation and the hot throw, I'm actually going to give it a 6. You could tell it was Love Spell, but there was just a whole lot missing. It had a fresh floral scent, but it didn't have that really strong finishing sharp punch that you expect from Love Spell. And in addition to that, the hot throw was a little lacking. So for scent representation and strength of hot throw, we're going to give it a 6 in each category. And last but not least, Cajun Candle Supply continued to remain consistent throughout the entire process. For scent representation in the hot throw, we gave it a 7. It actually had a really decent hot throw, so for strength of hot throw, we're going to give it an 8. So every category has been scored out of a possible 50. I will tally it up and let you guys see the results if you guys want to check those out right there. So as you can see from the results, Lone Star Candle Supply was the big numbers winner, with CANDLEScience following just closely behind. And like I said in the beginning, this number rating system is very subjective and could be just completely arbitrary. But if we're going to be comparing 10 different things, it seemed a lot more instructive to actually give it a number rating system, rather than for me to just sit here and go, oh, I like this one, don't like this one, like this one, don't like that one. So the numbers are there, take them for what they're worth. For me personally, if I had to pick a favorite, it would be a toss-up between Lone Star and CANDLEScience. Both of them smelled very true to form and had great cold and hot scent throw. If you guys have had different experiences with either of these companies, feel free to let me know in the comments. If there is a Love Spell representation from the Candle Supply Company that I didn't review today, feel free to tell us about that in the comment section as well. Guys, make sure you like and share this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on that notification bell so you know when new videos come out. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.